Hello everyone, good morning. Welcome back to the Light of Infinite Festival. And my name is Micaela Ezra. It's really an honor to be here with you today. Thank you, Erez, for inviting me. It's such an incredible initiative to be part of, us coming together in community from so many different places. And it's really wild to consider that we are gathering from all over the world. I am speaking here from Australia, where it's already tomorrow morning from wherever most of you are. It's July 12th, and it's actually my eldest daughter Alia's birthday. She's turning 9 today. So she's generously given me half an hour away from our celebration programming to be with you all. And I would like to dedicate this talk in her honor. Happy birthday, Leah. I was remembering last night that it was the full moon of Tammuz in July 9 years ago. I was walking down 7th Avenue in Manhattan with my husband and my mother, 39 weeks pregnant. It was a balmy summer night, and I was looking up at the sky and commenting to them that the full moon often brings on labor. And I walked back home, walked into my apartment, my water broke, and the story of her birth began to unfold. So it feels very aligned to be having this conversation with you this morning. So today, we are talking about the trends and traditions of gathering for a moon circle. Jewish women have inherited the most valuable gift, such a beautiful, valuable gift. Firstly, in the ritual of gathering, and secondly, in the specific monthly wisdom that can be shared in those spaces. The Jewish calendar and the energy of each month has so much to teach us, so much that can aid us on our journeys of introspection, helping us to heal and to grow, helping us to connect with our souls. This calendar can act to reflect and give context to our life experiences while adding meaning and purpose to so many of our life moments. So it's really in all of our interest to deeply understand and find a way to access this incredible wisdom. So now this also happens to align with a trend that we've been witnessing. There is the most beautiful revival of gathering in ceremony and in circle, often in honor of the new moon or the full moon, but also in honor of life cycle moments, milestones, baby blessings, pre-wedding blessings, and this is happening in many places, in many different forms. It carries a universal appeal. It's not exclusive to anyone. And it feels like women are really reclaiming this beautiful, beautiful ritual. It's filling a deep, deep need within all of us to connect to one another, to be seen, to share, to feel held, to connect to deeper truths and to a higher source, to create spaces that are containers for elevated conversation and containers for blessing, and to hold these conversations that really lead us inward and also help us connect honestly and truthfully with one another. So when I gather, there is always a curiosity among the women to understand where this comes from. It feels refreshing and needed and new and inspiring, but it also carries this tangible ancient thread. And many of the women know that in some way it's rooted in Judaism or it's connected to Judaism, but they don't know how and why. And like so many spiritual practices that are anchored in our ancient Jewish wisdom, there is the chance that our experience of honoring the moon cycles can become cut off from its source if we aren't reflective and intentional and really educated about where it comes from. So this morning I want to dive into where this tradition comes from within Judaism, what our connection is to the moon, how aligning with the lunar cycle and the energy of the Hebrew months can really fulfill those deep needs that I mentioned before, to share space, to feel seen, to feel held, to learn together, and to connect, while also guiding us towards personal growth and healing. So if you attend a monthly circle, if you host a circle, if you're curious about doing either of those things, or if you simply want to, and not simply, if you want to understand what the gift of tracking Jewish time is, then I have created this for you, and I really hope that it serves you and that it touches your heart. So we're in the form of a circle right now. Yes, obviously, physically, we're distanced and connecting virtually, but we're gathering with a shared intention, we're gathering with shared purpose, cultivating a space that is supportive and one that is conducive to connection and higher learning. So I'm going to invite you all, wherever you find yourself, to close your eyes. Get comfortable in your seat, wherever you find yourself. Feel the support of the chair that you're in, the cushion, the floor. Let your shoulders drop back. And take a deep, generous inhale together. And exhale. And you can continue this cycle of deep breath and relaxation. We enter this cycle of breath together as we enter this circle. It's a place of ancient wisdom. And it's really a privilege that we can acknowledge that we are able to sit here and talk openly and proudly about these themes, about our Judaism. To connect to this ancient practice, women have always gathered like this to teach, to learn, to exchange. It is our birthright, and it's a place of sacred power. We honor the cycles of time, of nature, of the moon, of our bodies, realizing that all are interconnected. We offer gratitude, so much gratitude to the teachers and the sages who have brought these teachings to our awareness, both living and past. We open ourselves up to the teachings of Torah, which are living and breathing and woven into our days, with gratitude to the divine, who continues to bless and sustain us all. My prayer is that these words I share reflect the highest truth, and that they enter your hearts with the proper intention. I invite you, as we sit here from so many different places, to think of one thing that unites us all, and to hold that in your heart. Take another deep, generous breath. Exhale. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes. So my mother, who has a remarkable memory, tells me that moon was my first word. And one of my earliest memories is standing outside our first home in this little cul-de-sac, held by my father, looking up at the night sky, pointing to the moon. And I think so many of us are intuitively drawn to her illumination. So for me, it's been really nourishing, both emotionally and intellectually, to start to learn just a small part of the Jewish approach to this beautiful celestial body who is so magnetic, and to understand a little bit about how she moves and plays a role in the divine orbit. So when we're discussing Jewish time, the first thing to consider is that our Hebrew calendar is a fusion of a lunar and a solar calendar, Western culture follows a solar calendar, other religions follow exclusively a lunar calendar, and Judaism synthesizes both. So mystically, this holds tremendous significance, and it's relevant because I want you to understand the ways that we approach the counting of time during our year. So we begin counting the new year with Rosh Hashanah, the head of the year, in the month of Tishrei, celebrating the creation of the world and the creation of mankind. However, we begin counting our months 6 months later in the Hebrew month of Nisan, the month in which we celebrate Passover, our freedom from Egypt, and our birth as a people. So we start counting our year at one point, but we start counting the first month at a different point in the calendar. And the reason for this is because in Nisan, right before Hashem took the Jewish people out of Egypt, the Israelite people, he gave them their first mitzvah. And this mitzvah is a mode for connection, a way to connect to him and to connect to life more deeply. And this mitzvah, the very first mitzvah he gave, was to count time according to the cycle of the moon. So given that counting lunar time was the very first mitzvah given, it has to have tremendous significance that we can learn from. So firstly, it reminds us that our time is a divine gift. Being masters of our own time is the primary distinction between slavery and freedom. Now, we live in cultures which obviously place high demands on our time, the way we connect or are consumed by work, the way we're consumed by our social media, by our children's busy schedules, which keep getting more and more filled up. And I just hear over and over again myself saying, and the people around me saying, time's just feeling like it's flying by. So becoming conscious of the wisdom of Jewish time is a tool that helps us to be really present with the flow of months and to understand this gift of our freedom, to understand that our awareness of time is wrapped up with our experience of freedom. The second teaching this mitzvah draws our attention to is the power of renewal. So the moon knows that it will glow and it will fade and then it will be luminous once more. And since the moon is always renewing, it reminds us that our mission as a people is intertwined with this concept, this idea of continual renewal. We know that Hashem is constantly breathing new life into all of us, into all of creation. And the moon represents this. It represents a realm of infinite possibility, a realm where the divine can change and can reinvent, a realm that's beyond what we can see, beyond what seems like the reality. And there is a faith that we need to hold and to tap into this process. This applies individually whenever we're going through a difficult period, if we lose sense of who we are, whenever we feel or experience some type of darkness in our lives, we are reminded that like the moon, we will return one day to our light, we will find our way forward. And it applies to us collectively as the Jewish people. We may experience periods of great challenge, periods of oppression, but we will always return to our light. We will always come back into our full expression. And finally, a third teaching from this first mitzvah is that just as the moon has no light of her own and merely reflects the sun's light, we too are sustained and given our life force energy and given our power and our blessing by a higher source. And we are each of our souls are reflections of this powerful light of the divine. So as women, we feel especially connected to the lunar cycle. In Jewish texts, the sun is representative of a masculine energy, which is direct and sustaining and consistent and powerful, and it's giving light. But the moon represents more of a feminine energy, which is subtle and elusive and it's one of receiving and reflecting light. The moon waxes and wanes every month, which alludes to our feminine monthly cycle. And in fact, all other cycles in nature correlate to either changes in temperature or changes in season or changes in time of day. That's what moves the cycle along. However, in all of nature, it is only the woman's monthly hormonal cycle and the movement of the tides which are in alignment with the rhythm of the moon. And that's pretty profound. In the whole of creation, it's just our monthly rhythm that is in alignment with the force of the moon. The moon has this sense of mystery about it as it disappears into darkness and then emerges again. And just like the moon receives and reflects light, we see in our capacity as women, that as receivers, that when we create life, we do the same thing. We receive from our partner, we cultivate something within in silent mystery in the darkness of our wombs, and then we birth something new into the world, a new reflection of life. So we're very, very connected to the moon and her cycle. Now, from a Jewish perspective, the celebration of Rosh Chodesh was actually given to the women. In Hebrew, we call the beginning of each new month, we call it Rosh Chodesh, literally meaning the head of the month. And the Talmud tells us that the gift of Rosh Chodesh was given to women because they did not participate in the creation of the golden calf at Mount Sinai, at Har Sinai. When Moses ascended the mountain to draw down and receive the totality of Torah, and he did not return in exactly the moment that the people were expecting him to, the men experienced this moment of panic, and they had this knee-jerk reaction, and they needed to rebuild a connection to Hashem. They thought Moses had died, and they were desperate. And so they did what they had seen other cultures do, and they took all of their precious belongings and their gold, and they threw it into a fire, and out emerged this idol, this golden calf. But we're told that the women did not experience the same faltering of faith, and they did not have that reaction. And so as a result, they were gifted this reward of Rosh Chodesh. The Talmud says that it was actually our matriarch Rachel, who drew down the additional prayers that we read as a community every Rosh Chodesh. And she did this intuiting that generations and generations later, generations after her death, there would be women in the desert who would stand firm in their faith and hold close to their faith in the midst of a challenge. And Rachel, in her own way, was intimately familiar with this feminine flow and this movement from darkness to light, from grief to joy. Now, to reiterate, Rosh Chodesh is when we actually do not see the moon in the sky. At that point of the moon's orbit, it's actually sitting between the sun and the earth, and so there's no reflection of light. It's completely in the darkness. And it's really interesting to think that we sanctify the moon when the sky is dark. We bless even when we cannot see the full brilliance and the full illumination of what is ahead of us. And that is the ultimate reflection of the faith the women had at Har Sinai for Moses to return down the mountain. They had faith in a reality which could not yet be perceived. And this is the ultimate reflection of the faith that we are all striving towards in our lives, the emunah that we wish to cultivate. This is the moon's mystery of renewal and reemergence, and it's more about the knowing of our hearts than about what we can physically see with our eyes, and about finding it within to trust in an outcome that we haven't yet seen. What exactly is Rosh Chodesh? The word Rosh means head and Chodesh means month. However, this word Chodesh contains the same letters as the Hebrew word Chadash. The same letters, different vowels, different pronunciation. And Chadash means newness. So Rosh Chodesh, head of the month, can also be read as Rosh Chadash, a new head, a new mind, a new mindset, or a new consciousness. Each Hebrew month is bringing forth a new, specific, and unique divine energy, which is reflected in nature, in the constellations, in our emotions, in the festivals that we celebrate during that time, and which we can see, if we examine, reflected in each of our personal experiences. So Rosh Chodesh, the beginning of the month, carries a really potent form of the energy that will unfold, much like Rosh Hashanah and Tishrei do for the rest of the year. They carry a potent snapshot of the energy for the year ahead. And it's therefore, Rosh Chodesh is a really auspicious time to connect to the potential energy of the month. It's an auspicious and powerful time to gather, to pray, to bless, to set intentions, to reflect, and to explore the energy of the month ahead of us. As I mentioned, each Jewish month has a specific energy, and there is an underlying divine influence which gives the month particular qualities, and these qualities are expressed in different ways within the natural world. So mystically, we will look at 12 different factors to understand and to feel into what the divine signature of that time is. Some of these factors include a Hebrew letter, which is the root of each month. The root, it contains the root energy of each month. We look at a particular mazal or astrological sign. We look at the season that the month falls in as an expression of its energy, whether it's spring or summer or autumn or winter. We look at an element associated with the month, fire, air, earth, or water. We look at a permutation of the letters of Hashem's name. There is a sense associated with each month, a body part, a Hebrew tribe, and we look at the festivals that fall during that time, the Torah portions that we read. All of these factors give us this beautiful portrait of the time. And we then use that portrait, that understanding, to reflect on our own experiences and to look at aspects within ourselves that may need some healing, that may need some attention. For example, in this month, we're in the month of Tammuz, we consider how we sit within periods of grief without rushing past them, which allows us to grow. As we sit with pain, it stretches our container. And appropriately, the astrological sign for this month is the crab which is vulnerable and soft inside and needs to allow new shells to harden and grow. The sense to heal this month is our sight, and we look at how our sight can lead to increased material desire and jealousy. And so in order to heal that, and as a remedy to that, we practice seeing beyond the physical reality around us, to see the good in everything and the godliness within everything. In a few months' time in Elul, we do personal accounting and we return lovingly to our essence. The month of Adar is all about our joy and our playfulness, and it's a time of uncertainty where everything can be flipped. So as we move through the months, the year takes us on this exquisite, divinely choreographed journey of introspection. And every month reveals something new within us that can be worked on. Every month points out something interesting for us to explore. And something to note, in Judaism, time is considered to be a spiral. So we're moving forward in time, we're progressing, which feels linear, but at the same time, we're moving through this familiar cycle and this same repetition of energies as we move through the months each year. So time is not either a straight line or considered to be circular. It's actually a spiral where we're moving up in time. Every year we move slightly higher on this spiral of time. So every Tishrei we revisit the same energy, but we're at a slightly different level. And when we reflect on the nature of the Hebrew month each year, we're going to come at it from a different place and a different perspective based on our own growth and life experience, but also based on the collective evolution up this spiral of time. So this leads us to the benefits of tracking time according to the moon. Obviously, we each have our own relationship with Judaism, and perhaps it includes celebrating Shabbat every week or gathering for learning events like this, or it may be something that we're conscious of every day. For others, it might revolve around hosting an occasional meal, feeling obligated to attend a shul service, rocking up to our aunt's house once a year on Passover, or maybe it's just our connection might just be about asking our children what they're celebrating or learning about at school or in Hebrew school. But we have been gifted this opportunity to align with the rhythm of the Hebrew months, and this offers us meaningful, juicy, psychological and spiritual pathways of introspection, and it gives us this spiritual anchor within ourselves. Once we understand the unique flavor of each month, we just take this awareness with us and we use it as a lens with which to perceive all of our life experiences, challenging, joyful, everything in between. And in this way, this awareness means that the Torah and the divine and our experience of Judaism becomes woven into our days. It becomes relevant. We feel it living and breathing in our hearts and our consciousness. And this is a level of awareness that lives between and beyond all those isolated celebrations I mentioned before. We can reconnect to our Jewish identity in a way that feels personal and relevant and overarching. And when we gather at Rosh Chodesh and reflect on this energy within the sacred support of a circle of women, we are creating containers for divine blessing and wisdom to flow through. And we also have that experience I mentioned in the beginning of feeling seen and held and supported. And we have the blessing of deep sisterhood. We create the blessing of deep sisterhood and connection. So we're coming towards the end. Here are 3 quick suggestions for how you can tap into this moon's wisdom and awareness yourselves. Number 1, put a Hebrew calendar on your phone. That means every time you look at your phone, you see the English date, you see the day of the year, and you see the Hebrew date. And this automatically triggers a response and awareness. I can tap into this sacred time. I can tap into this holy time. I am more than my circumstances. I am part of a divinely created universe. Number 2, join or host a circle yourself. There are beautiful supportive programs for this. At The Well, I can highly recommend, have supportive materials and guide you on this journey. And hopefully starting in the new year, the new Jewish year, I will be hosting a Zoom class once a month teaching about the energy of the time. So you can join me on Instagram or via my website, micaelaezra.com, to learn more about that. And thirdly, there are a myriad of learning sources online, books. There's a beautiful series of books by Rav Dov Pinson talking about each month, but you can just go and Google away and explore your hearts out. There is so much to learn. So in conclusion, at the end of 2020, my family and I returned to Australia after 15 years of living in Manhattan, 15 years of building community, and I was really missing my spiritual sisterhood. I was complaining about this one day in the car with my husband and really down. And from the back seat, my daughter, Leah, was sitting in the middle, and she kind of pops her head forward through the middle of the car. And she said, well, Mom, if you're missing it so much, why don't you just create it for yourself? And so I've been doing that for the past 2.5 years. And for me, although I'd been learning for so long, just this commitment to regularly hold space and share space and learn this with a beautiful cohort of women has been so wondrous and beautiful for me. So my prayer for all of you is that you find your place of connection, that you deepen your awareness of the energy and the gift that each month is offering you, that this infuses your days, guides you to higher consciousness, brings joy into your life, and deepens your connection, not only to Hashem, but also to your soul. Thank you so much for being here with me. I wish you all well on your journey. Stay in touch and have an inspiring remainder of this festival. Be well.